It's been estimated that agriculture and forest land can contribute immensely to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. For many in agriculture and forestry, carbon offsets represent opportunities to obtain more value out of the land and new land management technologies, in addition to the possibilities of reducing the costs of cap-and-trade programs. Agriculture and forestry offsets are already contributing financially to some farms and private forestry operations, and because of their important functions, farmers and foresters must have a voice in the discussion about climate change policy. That's why I want to thank you again, Chairman Stabenow, for holding this hearing today for this important discussion. Climate legislation is expected to be considered by the full Senate soon, and it's important that we are having this dialogue today to increase the awareness of agriculture and forestry's contributions and to take a careful look at what is known so far as to how offsets are working in voluntary markets and how projects can be properly verified and monitored. Additionally, appropriate attention needs to be paid to examine both the positive and the negative effects of mandatory cap-and-trade systems on farmers, ranchers, and foresters. I commend the work that's being done throughout the agriculture and forestry communities to collectively look at the most constructive role for agriculture and forestry in this context. Many of the witnesses here today have been on the cutting edge of that effort. And in the cooperative work that is taking place on this issue, it's very productive. Congress is on the verge of finalizing a new Farm Bill. And included in that Farm Bill conference report is a provision to require the United States Department of Agriculture to create technical guidelines, including verification and accounting measures to determine environmental services benefits from conservation and land management actions. This provision would also direct the Department to concentrate first on carbon markets. It's important because it would better prepare agriculture to take part in the carbon credit markets through a structure led by the USDA. This provision also adds to the significant mechanisms in the Farm Bill for improving our environment through conservation programs. We need to keep these programs in mind as models when considering climate initiatives and legislation. No federal policy has contributed more to enhancing our environment than the Farm Bill and the conservation programs specifically included in it. I continue to believe that incentives rather than mandates offer the best way to achieve environmental results on private land. For that reason, the role of family farms and private forests as offset contributors rather than capped industries seem to me to be the most productive approach. It's important to make certain, though, that throughout the advancement of any legislation pertaining to this issue, it does not turn into a mechanism to force certain planting or operating decisions that may not be in the best interest or make the best sense for a particular agriculture or forestry operation. Additionally, it's important that U.S. agriculture sectors do not get penalized for environmental management in agriculture sectors outside our borders. For instance, a United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization cited cattle rearing as generating more greenhouse gas emissions than the transportation sector. However, in the United States, cattle management practices surpass practices in other countries. The livestock industry is a vital part of Idaho's economy. In 2007, Idaho's beef and dairy industries provided 57% of Idaho's overall agriculture receipts, with more than $3 billion. It's important for our national economy to ensure that these sectors continue to be successful, to maintain these industries and the jobs that they produce in the United States. I encourage everyone to continue to take a hard and realistic look at all the factors, good and bad, that may result from a mandatory cap-and-trade system. The effects are far too reaching to do otherwise. Some have raised the concern that emissions leakage could substantially lessen the effects of emissions reductions. And it's also important to look at how early actors who are already taking steps to reduce emissions would be taken into account in the new system. It's also important to examine proper measurement, double counting, permanence, and the very serious concerns about the impact of cap-and-trade systems on agriculture inputs that are already sizable and growing. We also need to make certain that as tradable units are developed, they are done in metrics that make sense for agriculture. For farmers and foresters to be able to assist with reducing emissions, they must be able to remain on the land. There are legitimate concerns that implementation of a cap-and-trade system could result in prohibitive increases in input costs such as diesel and fertilizer. Policies should best be structured to enable agriculture and forestry to contribute to this effort without compromising their ability to thrive. I look forward to driving into some of these issues as we evaluate the discussion today. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming here, the witnesses. Again, Senator Stabenow for the farsightedness in holding this hearing, and good timing as well. And I appreciate what I expect we will have in terms of our lively discussion today. Thank you.